Coming to you on a beautiful sunny morning. It's Womanless Nerd Out time! What's going on, people? Happy Womanless Nerd Out time. And today, we're going to talk about eczema, also known as atopic dermatitis. I'm sure you guys are really excited to talk about that. Well, I know at least one person is, because we had a patient who had it very recently, and they said, I have these rashes on my arm, and I get some on my knee, the pit of my knee, and I talked to a doctor, and they told me I have eczema, and what is that? What can I kind of do, and what's going on? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what atopic dermatitis is. I think that is a better name for it because it tells us exactly what it is, what causes it, what we can do for it, yada yada yada. So atopic dermatitis, if we break the name down, well, atopic is referring to an allergy, and derm is skin, itis is inflammation. So it's an allergic reaction causing skin inflammation. This is also known as a type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, in which we release IgE antibodies. If you're somebody who is familiar with hypersensitivity reactions, it's where the body is mistakenly identifying something as intrusive and something that we need to create an immune response against, which really wasn't that big of a deal in the first place, and it does a lot more harm than good since the body's doing that. So in atopic dermatitis, let's take a typical allergen, for example, something like pollen. And so that pollen comes into contact with our skin. And what happens is it goes through the epidermis, that's the outer layer of the skin, it gets into the deeper layer of the skin, the dermis, and it encounters an immune cell. And this immune cell, also known as an antigen-presenting cell, because it's presenting the antigen, in this case, it's pollen, which the body's mistaking for an antigen, right? And so it's presenting that now to a helper T cell, and that helper T cell becomes a Th2 cell. We're not going to get too deep into this, but we need to understand the mechanism to understand why we're doing what we're doing in terms of the treatment, right? And so now this Th2 cell goes over to the B cells. He says, all right, B cell, listen, my guy, there's something foreign. We got to make a bunch of antibodies against this guy when he comes back, so this way we can handle him in the future, right? And so the B cell starts producing a bunch of IgE antibodies. And these IgE antibodies then go and they bind to mast cells and basophils. And these mast cells and basophils are now what we call sensitized. This process is known as sensitization. So now our body has been sensitized to the pollen through this pathway in simple, and there are other steps, but that's the gist of it. It's been sensitized to this pollen so that in the future it can react to that pollen when it comes with full force, right? And so what happens now when this pollen comes in contact with the skin, and it goes through that epidermis into the dermis, and the body says, it's like, we know you, we've been sensitized to you, our mast cells and our basophils are ready to go. And so what they do is they release histamine, and something that's pro-inflammatory. I'm sure you heard of antihistamines, and they reduce inflammation. And so they release histamine, they release leukotrienes, which are pro-inflammatory things, and they also release proteases. So what is a protease? Well, protein, ace, is something that breaks something down, right? And so something that will break down proteins. And more specifically, in this case, we're talking about atopic dermatitis, so it's breaking down the proteins in the epidermal layer of the skin, in that outer layer, superficial layer of the skin, right? And so now it's making things that are breaking down the skin. It's making things that are increasing inflammation. So what's happening here? Well, now that we came in contact with that pollen and our cells have been sensitized to it, well, this inflammatory process is vasodilating or opening blood vessels adjacent to the skin. It's allowing more inflammatory mediators to come to this site. More immune cells are flowing into this site. That blood vessel is getting bigger and it's getting closer to the skin, right? And so what happens is it becomes more porous, if you will, leaky, and things can leak out through the skin like water, right? So we lose water and our skin becomes dehydrated and dry, and that skin barrier that is defective because these proteases are breaking it down now is more porous to things coming in like that pollen, right? Or other irritants. And so now these things that are coming in easier are triggering this response more frequently. We're losing more water. This is just not a good thing. The skin is dehydrated, it's red, it's itchy, it's all crackly, it's dry. And this is no bueno. So what causes this? Do I just wake up with this? Well, there's a major genetic component to atopic dermatitis, and it's often accompanied by a few other diseases that involve the same type of hypersensitivity, more specifically hay fever, also known as allergic rhinitis or common allergies, and asthma, right? And they call this the atopic triad, atopic dermatitis, hay fever, and asthma, right? Where you commonly see all three in people. So there is a major genetic component. And where do we get these rashes, and who gets them? Well, typically in infants. You get them in infants, children. You can even, more commonly, but you even see them in adults as well. And when infants get them, they're typically on the face and in the scalp. So they're always trying to itch at their face and scalp, which we don't want to do. We do not want to itch and further break down the skin barrier. We'll talk about that all in a second. In children, typically, and in adults too, they get the rashes on the flexor surfaces of extremities, right? And so, also on the feet and on the hands. And so what can we do to stop the itching? What can we do to reduce this inflammatory mediated process and this dry, cracking skin? I'm sure you may wish you just started watching the video now. What the hell can I do about it? So in terms of controlling the inflammatory mediated process, well, one thing we want to do is we want to avoid triggers, right? Naturally. That seems like common sense, but yeah, avoiding the pollen in the first place, well, that may be a good idea. Also avoiding any other irritants, like things like mold or dust mites. Smoke could be another irritant, right? The many things could irritate the skin and could trigger this process as well, at least make it a little bit worse. So we definitely want to avoid irritants. We want to avoid stress. Stress can definitely make it worse, whether internally what's going on in terms of physiological regulation or hormonal, or just the fact that when you're stressed, you're going to be itching at it more, scratching all over the place, right? So we definitely want to avoid triggers. We definitely want to avoid stress. We want to avoid overheating. We want to avoid overheating because we're losing moisture through the skin, just like when we sweat, right? When you're all hot and those blood vessels are opening up, they're getting closer to the skin. Why? So they can release some of this heat, so they can release moisture. That is no bueno when it comes to atopic dermatitis. You're losing even more water through this defective skin barrier, and so that skin is becoming even drier than it was before. So we definitely want to avoid overheating, right? We want to use soft fabrics, soft, comfortable fabrics, right? So we're less inclined to scratch at those places, right? So maybe cover the lesions with nice, soft fabrics. So that's it. Something we can do in terms of the inflammatory mediated portion, and a little bit, I guess, with the itching and dryness. But when it comes to the dryness, of course, we would like to apply lotion. We would like to moisturize the affected area, and we would probably want to apply that a few times a day, and the best time to apply it would be after a warm bath, when those skin cells are nice and porous, right? When the skin is ready to just soak up and absorb all that moisture. After a warm bath is probably the best time to apply that lotion. So moisturizer is another one. And so what can we do in terms of itching, right? Well, we want to keep the nails short, and we don't want to scratch. Common sense, again, it seems like, right? But it's going to make the skin barrier worse. If you keep scratching, what's happening? You're damaging an already defective skin barrier, and so you're damaging even worse. It could be damaged to the point where someone keeps scratching. You see in cases where it becomes leather-like, and it's all blistered, and it's just like a leathery sheet at some point. You really broke down the skin bad. So we definitely don't ever want to get there. But what can we do also to reduce this scratching? Well, they may give you something that will reduce the inflammation further, and that's a steroid. They may give you also something that will reduce the inflammatory response and make you not want to scratch as much, right? Because the whole process is happening less. Something like a calcineurin inhibitor, they use those for autoimmune diseases all the time. Remember, this is a hypersensitivity reaction, not as much in autoimmune disease, but they may give calcineurin inhibitors, and antihistamines, or even antibiotics in the presence of an infection, because you're also more likely to suffer an infection if your body is, wide open to things coming in through the skin, right? So that's what we got for you guys today. Those are a few things that you can do if you have atopic dermatitis. That's what's going on, and those are the good reasons we have for doing what we're doing. Hope you guys are having a great day. Let's see who we got out here. Say hi to the people. And then we're going to get out of here. Maybe we'll do like every disease, different days on all the diseases. What do you guys think? That would be fun. I like talking about it. Black Sand. Jen K, what's up? Sounds a siren. Gertrude Drank. What's up, what's up? Got your drink for you. Jay Prometsu. Johnny DMN. Hello, my friends. Que paso? It's a nice day out here in Davenport, Iowa. Where are you guys watching from? Anybody from New York out there? That's where I'm initially from. Or from Iowa? Earth Light Force. Stephen Apple Blue, Bad Vogue. Thanks, Ma. Love you. Challenge X Reality. You're the best, Ma. 77 Duke K. Duke. This one's for you, Ma, always. Everyone pretty much is. Everyone is. You're my biggest fan. Mano Salva. I'm Abdul Rahman Saab. What's up? Thank you for coming on, Abdul. Shecky. Sword. Veggies and Boy. Meg, what's up, girl? How you doing? VL Roberg. Dapper DeLil. Malcolm. What's up, my man? Hassan 89. Aaron Bedros. Look at that. As we scrolled up, we realized the first one of the day was Malcolm. This one's for you, man. Thanks for being cool. Thanks for being yourself. Thanks for being great. And thanks for supporting Wen Wellness and hopping on here and learning a little something about atopic dermatitis today. We sure had fun teaching about it and talking about it, at least. So, what up, Preston? How you doing, bruh? What's up, bruh? Notchin. Ayo Housen. Clicky Ricky. I like that. Nina P, what's up, girl? How you doing? You guys have a fantastic rest of your day. It's all we got for you, folks. We'll see you tomorrow, baby. Not sure where, not sure when, but we'll see you then. Have a great one. Thanks so much, and happy Wen Wellness. Ciao.